Yesterday, I did the story about the woman who had her feet amputated after being pushed on the subway tracks in New York. Well, at the time that I had seen the article, the man hadn't been arrested. Now he has been. I'm doing this story because several people have wondered why he hasn't been arrested. So here's this story. Man who allegedly pushed his girlfriend on the subway tracks in Lower Manhattan faces judge. The man arrested for pushing a woman onto the subway tracks in Lower Manhattan faced a judge on Sunday night. Christian Valdez is charged with attempted murder of his girlfriend after allegedly shoving her in front of an oncoming train at the Fulton Street station on Saturday morning after the two had an argument. Valdez was out on parole after going to prison for other violent crimes, but he is not one of the repeat subway offenders the governor has been talking about protecting the public from, who may be attacking strangers. This was her boyfriend. Prosecutors say that Valdez fled the scene after the attack and then contacted his parole officer and told them what happened. He was arrested Sunday afternoon. Last week, Governor Huckle announced a major subway safety plan deploying hundreds of National Guard troops in the system and banning repeat offenders. I want to make sure that people have a strong sense of safety because otherwise they will not go on. All right, so we have that. He's been arrested and he is a repeat violent offender, not necessarily a subway offender. The next story I want to update us all on is the woman that is at the center of Katie Britt's lie, where she was talking about the woman that she talked to at the border. So yesterday, Katie Britt was all over news talking like she was not purposely misleading people, and she was literally purposely misleading. Folks act like when they don't fill in the blanks, that people are not going to make those connections. She was attempting to connect this woman's life story to Joe Biden. Let's be real. She was lying. She was lying. She was being deceitful. That's what was happening. Well, the woman, this sex trafficking victim, says Senator Katie Britt telling her story during the State of the Union rebuttal is not fair. And instead of reading the article, I'm just going to play the video.
Exclusively to CNN. CNN's Rafael Romo has the story. So, Rafael, the woman, tell us more about who she is and why she has decided to speak out tonight.
Erica, her name is Carla Jacinto, and I have known her since 2014. CNN profiled her story as part of CNN's Freedom Project, which seeks to raise awareness about modern-day slavery. Jacinto says she's very careful about who she gives her testimony to and how and when she does it. So she was very surprised, Erica. She told me when she found out yesterday that she was involuntarily put in the middle of a social media storm. This storm was prompted by what appears to be the use of her story during the Republican response to the State of the Union address by Alabama Senator Katie Britt. I reached out to Carla Jacinto in Mexico City for her reaction, and this is part of what she told me. Let's take a listen. At one point when I met you years and years ago, you told me that you felt like at the beginning Mexican politicians had taken advantage of you by using your story for political purposes. Do you feel like that happened once again here in the United States?
Yes. In fact, I hardly ever cooperate with politicians because it seems to me that they only want an image. They only want a photo. And that to me is not fair. I work as a spokesperson for many victims who have no voice, and I really would like them to be empathetic. All the governors, all the senators to be empathetic with the issue of human trafficking, because there are millions of girls and boys who disappear all the time. People who are really trafficked and abused, as she mentioned. And I think she should first take into account what really happens before telling a story of that magnitude.
And Erica, Carla Jacinto also told me that Senator Britt got many of the facts of her story wrong. First of all, Jacinto says that one, she was not trafficked by Mexican drug cartels, but by a pimp that operated as part of a family that entrapped vulnerable girls in order to force them into prostitution. Two, she also said that she was never trafficked in the United States, as Senator Britt appeared to suggest. 3, she was kept in captivity from 2004 to 2008 when President George W. Bush, a Republican, was in office, as opposed to the current administration, as the senator implied. And 4, she met the senator at an event at the border with other government officials and anti-human trafficking activists instead of one-on-one. CNN has confirmed much of what Jacinto has said in prior reporting, and her story hasn't changed since we first spoke. Jacinto told me no one reached out to her to ask for her permission to use her story as part of a political speech. Someone using my story and distorting it for political purposes, she told me, is not fair at all. Erica?
It is really important reporting tonight, Rafael. What about the Britt camp? Has the senator's camp responded at all to this?
Well, CNN reached out to her office today seeking comment, but so far we haven't heard back. Earlier today, this is what Senator Britt had to say in an interview with Fox News about the story of Carla Jacinto. Let's take a listen.
But to be clear, the story that you relayed is not something that's happened under the Biden administration, that particular person.
Well, I very clearly said I spoke to a woman who told me about when she was trafficked when she was 12. So I didn't say a teenager. I didn't say a young woman, a grown woman, a woman when she was trafficked when she was 12. And so listening to her story, she is a victim's right advocate who is telling this is what drug cartels are doing. This is how they're profiting off of women. And it is disgusting. And so I am hopeful that it brings some light to it.
And Erica, one final thing. Earlier, a spokesperson from Britt's office told CNN that the story was, quote, 100% correct, but would not confirm nor denied whether it was Jacinto's account. Back to you.
Here's an interesting story. Biden administration expands IVF access to unmarried veterans and those in same-sex couples. The Department of Veterans Affairs is expanding its in vitro fertilization benefits regardless of marital status and will allow the use of donor eggs, sperm, and embryos for the first time. Why it matters? Veterans who are unmarried or in same-sex marriages will be able to access broader reproductive care at a time when it faces post-Roe legal challenges in several states. The ability to use donors is a critical step towards helping veterans who are not able to produce their own sperm or eggs due to service-connected injuries and health conditions, the department said in a statement on Monday. The VA said it expects the expanded benefits to become available in the coming weeks. Veterans are already eligible for other reproductive health services, including maternity care, cervical cancer screening, and fertility evaluation. VA also covers up to $2,000 of adoption expenses for veterans who are infertile because of a disability linked to their service. Yes, but the VA does not cover surrogacy for any veterans. What they're saying, VA has advocated for this IVF expansion for years, including submitting repeated legislative proposals to expand IVF services at the VA. Zoom out. Pregnancies in women veterans using VA care increased by more than 80% from 2014 to 2022. Last year, VA expanded access to postpartum care. In 2022, the department said it planned to provide smamorphin in cases of rape, incest, and when birth presents danger to a woman's health. State of play, IVF has been the subject of partisan contention after Alabama's Supreme Court ruled that frozen embryos are considered children under state law. Access to IVF treatment in Alabama was paused amid legal uncertainties. I've definitely gone into more detail about Alabama up to this point. So this next story is not an exact segue, but it does kind of match. Just like people are doing non-traditional ways of getting babies or having babies, now people are doing non-traditional ways of getting into home ownership. So this is another one from Axios. Why more people are buying houses with their friends. And this is going to really shake the table because I'm sure more women are buying houses with other women. So the men's, they're probably going to be upset about that. Roughly half of Americans are willing to split the bill on buying a home in less traditional ways, per a study. Why it matters? Buying with a friend is one way to make this wild market more manageable. driving the news. A recent survey from JW Surety Bonds saw some 15% of Americans have gone in on a home with someone other than a romantic partner. People who split a mortgage with a friend might also see it as an avenue to build and sustain community. By the numbers, co ownership rates grew 21.1% on average among non married partners in 2023 compared to previous year in the top 10 U.S. counties, with the largest co ownership transaction growth per co ownership marketplace, Picasso. The top 10 counties fell within Virginia, Utah, North Dakota, Minnesota, and Colorado. The big picture: Americans are delaying getting married and having kids, but younger people, also burdened with student loan debt, are finally reaching a point of stability to buy homes rather than rent. There are potential financial risks to consider when deciding to go in on a home with a non-spouse. If and this seems this is what would happen if you are a spouse as well. If one person has a bad credit score, that could negatively influence the mortgage terms per the mortgage lender, Rocket Mortgage. If one person in the agreement fails to pay their part of the mortgage payments, it can also hurt the other person's credit. That's life if you're married as well, y'all. The initial draws for co owning are often financial, but people might stay in such arrangements for emotional reasons. Niall Lichtenstein, co founder and CEO of Nesmith, told Axios. The co buying platform sees a range of multi generational groups living under one roof. I think there's a real desire for connection and support. Raina Cohen, award winning NPR journalist and author, lives with her husband, two of their friends, and their two children. I think there's increasing recognition that one person is not going to be your everything, or it's not wise to look for that, she tells Axios. So, this is going to be big, y'all. Single women are already outpacing single men in buying homes. So, this is going to be big. This is going to be big. So, we got to keep our eyes on this one. In a completely unrelated news story, Haiti declares state of emergency after thousands of dangerous inmates escape. Haiti has declared a 3-day state of emergency and a nighttime curfew after armed gangs stormed the country's two biggest jails, allowing more than 3,000 dangerous criminals, including murderers and kidnappers, to escape back onto the streets of the poor, violence-ranked Caribbean nation. The Prime Minister, Patrick Boisvert, who is in charge while the embattled Prime Minister Ariel Henry is abroad trying to salvage support for the UN-backed security force to stabilize Haiti, said the police would use all legal means at their disposal to recapture the prisoners and enforce the curfew. Jimmy Cherizier, a former elite police officer known as Barbecue, who now runs a gang federation, has claimed responsibility for the surge in attacks. He said the goal was to capture Haiti's police chief and government ministers and prevent Henry's return. The emergency decree was issued after a deadly weekend that marked a new low in Haiti's spiral of violence, and which has led U.S. to advise its citizens to leave as soon as possible, and Canada to temporarily close its embassy. At least 9 people have been unalived since Thursday, among them 4 police officers. Targets have included police stations, the country's international airport, and the National Football Stadium, where one employee was held hostage for hours. The UN estimates about 15,000 people were forced to flee the violence between Thursday and Saturday, including those already in makeshift camps for displaced people set up in schools, hospitals, and squares around the capital, Port-au-Prince. But even in a country accustomed to the constant threat of violence, Saturday's attack on the National Penitentiary in Port-au-Prince came as a huge shock. Almost all of the estimated 4,000 inmates escaped, leaving the normally overcrowded prison eerily empty on Sunday with no guards in sight and plastic sandals, clothing, and furniture strewn across the concrete patio. 3 bodies with gunshot wounds lay at the prison entrance. In another neighborhood, the bloody corpses of 2 men with their hands tied behind their backs lay face down as residents walked past roadblocks set up with burning tires. It was unclear how many inmates were on the run, but Arnel Remy, a human rights lawyer whose nonprofit organization works inside the National Penitentiary, said on X that fewer than 100 of the nearly 4,000 inmates remain behind bars. I'm the only one left in my cell, one unidentified inmate told Reuters. Sources close to the institution said it was likely an overwhelming majority of inmates had escaped. The penitentiary, built to hold 700 prisoners, held 3,687 as of February last year, according to rights group RNDDH. The BBC cited a local journalist who said the vast majority of about 4,000 men held there escaped. Those choosing to stay included 18 former Colombian soldiers accused of working as mercenaries in the July 2021 assassination of then Haitian President Jovenel Moise. On Saturday night, several of the Colombians shared a video pleading for their lives. Please help us, one of the men, Francisco Uribe, said in a message widely shared on social media. They are massacring people indiscriminately inside the cells. A second Port-au-Prince prison containing about 1,400 inmates was also overrun. The violence on Saturday night appeared to be widespread, with several neighborhoods reporting gunfire. This is wild. Internet service for many residents was also down as Haiti's top mobile network said its fiber optic cable connection was slashed during the rampage. Field teams managed to fully restore the connection on Sunday afternoon. In the space of less than 2 weeks, several state institutions have been attacked by the gangs, who are increasingly coordinating their actions and choosing once unthinkable targets, such as the central bank. Henri took over as prime minister after Moise's assassination and has repeatedly postponed plans to hold parliamentary and presidential elections, which have not taken place in almost a decade. The prime minister, a neurosurgeon, signed reciprocal agreements last week with Kenya's president, William Ruto, in an effort to salvage the plan to deploy Kenyan police to Haiti. We shall see if this violence continues. I'll be watching out for it. Jump in the comments. Let me know if you have seen any updates on this. And don't forget to like, comment, and share on any of these articles up to this point.